So this is the GrowthCraft podcast, episode 8. It's our first episode of Advisors. Hey everybody, welcome back to the GrowthCraft podcast, which is designed with the startup founder in mind. We are committed to growing your connections to the GrowthCraft advisors, increasing your engagement with the GrowthCraft community, and growing your knowledge about all the benefits that GrowthCraft can provide for you and your founding team. We can't wait to bring you along on this journey with our guest today. Here on our podcast, we interview startup founders, advisors, and others about their journey, their process, their product, and just as important, their interaction with GrowthCraft. My name is Tom Livy. I'm going to be your host today, and my co-host and partner in crime, Hassan, is on vacation. Even with him being on vacation, I know he would welcome you as well, Cheryl, but I'd like to welcome Cheryl to the podcast and quite honestly, just really jump right in, Cheryl. So why don't we start with just by you, kind of introducing yourself and your company and who you are.
Sure. Thank you, Tom. My name is Cheryl Barbato. I am the co-founder and president of a company called Talent Retriever. We've been in business for about 19 years. And as you know, kind of play dual role, an advisor and a founder myself. So I'm excited to be here today. Our company is focused in the talent acquisition or recruitment space. And, our real belief is it takes a great team to build a great team. So what we have done over the past 19 years is developed a company that works with many companies as an extension of their own company, understanding what they do, their vision, how to bring people into the company and introduce, what it is they do to people that they might be targeting to bring in. So our recruitment model is very different. We are not a contingency-based firm, so we're not being paid commission. We really work as a professional service. So in early stage companies in particular, some of the things that they focus on are, bringing in really critical leaders or key people into the company when they hit an inflection point. So, we say you might have exhausted your friends and family and networks and really need to find a way of how you work with somebody that's dependable, understands your needs, understands the urgency and the quality. And we go out, and identify those people and bring them into a process and then work with our partners to get them hired. And, we work on our own platform that we use. It's not our own, but we use EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So we refer to that as the right person, right seat, really getting what do we need, develop what that is, and be able to bring the right people in.
So first of all, that was a lot, right? Number one.
Sorry.
But first, no, it's quite all right. But I was thinking to myself as you were talking, I was like, oh, I probably should have mentioned that you are a GrowthCraft advisor as well as an owner of your own company, but you did that yourself. So I think that was great. But the other thing too, I mentioned that I wanted to point out just from a sales and marketing perspective, and I know you have a bit of a marketing background, which is probably why you did it. But I think the name of your company is brilliant. I love the fact, like Talent Retriever. I just think that it's so identifiable and so clear, right? Like you know what your company does even by looking at the name of the company. And it's creative though. It's not like simple like we hire people. So that we hire people. The name of your company is obviously obvious too, but you did it in a very creative way. I love the name of your company. But
thanks, Tom. It's kind of a funny story I co-founded the company with my husband, Dave. His background was in recruiting. Mine was in professional services marketing. Yes. And, there have been times we've had the back and forth of who came up with the name. It was definitely me. We have he was writing down my notes on the paper. So it's his handwriting. It was me that came up with it. So I appreciate that. Yeah. And, we entered into what we do at a time where there really was a need for a change in the recruitment space. So, I mentioned the key leader, but we do a lot of ramping teams as a company gets funding, being able to get them the people that they need to take the company to the next level when the board pressure's on and so forth. In a way, we understand how to work with those companies, flexibility, et cetera. So yeah, the Talent Retriever name, it's something that we love. It hopefully does explain what we do, but there was a thing called RPO or recruitment process outsourcing, just developing probably going back about 20 years ago when we first got into this. So, really coming in to disrupt the way people were used to doing recruiting was our mission.
So you just said something that prompted me to think. So how long have you guys been operating Talent Retriever?
This is our, yeah. So
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. So it's not, so you're not exactly in startup mode, but you do work with startups, right? So like that's one of the things that you strive for. Like I'm assuming that
correct.
there's a lot of startup opportunity where it comes from funding and they all of a sudden need to, blow up their whole workforce.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I feel like we're always in startup mode because we're always trying to, make improvements, and we'll call it, I think we're on Talent Retriever 4.0 right now. And really what we do is look for ways, how do we improve our process that's going to help our clients work effectively? And that means, making sure that we hire the right people to our team based on a very, very set criteria. And that means they fit our core values. They have some skills, but we actually are able to take somebody right out of school, train them to be a recruiting under our process, and have them up and running as a full lifecycle recruiter in 90 days, which is, we consider it a talent retriever certified person. And, so we've got that. And then we've got people that have 25 plus years of experience. And when our clients engage us, we really want to understand. We'll do a needs assessment, understand what their needs are, what their timelines are, and come back to them with a plan that is somewhat customized to them, which includes what kind of members of the team will they need that will work collaboratively together, as well as with our clients, to be able to achieve those goals.
So this is probably one of my favorite questions, right? And I'm not sure you're going to remember this far back, Cheryl, because one of my favorite questions is talking about, like, what started this for you? Like, why all of a sudden did you wake up and say, I can't manage dealing, like, I just can't work for these recruiting agencies anymore, or these headhunters, or
Right.
you mentioned Dave was the one in the recruiting world. So what prompted him to come to you and say, we've got to do this better than all these options right now? Like, what did that look like? Tell me how that came to be. Because what prompted my question too was the fact that you had said that the name of the company was written down in Dave's handwriting, right? So something kind of catapulted that conversation, right? So can you talk a little bit about what your process was from going from zero to now?
I remember it very well,
years.
actually, because I think I had a 3-year-old and a newborn baby at the time. So it's and a full-time job. So it's very much in my head. So, both Dave and myself knew, we wanted to we had an entrepreneurial spirit, wanted to do that, didn't know that we would ever do a business together. So, Dave was the one that kind of set out to say, look, I am sick of doing what I'm doing in the recruiting space for so many years. He had done contractors, opened offices in New York, full-time people, mostly in the technology space, and said, we got to do something different. So we kind of put our heads together. My background had been in, at the time I was working for many years in specifically law firm marketing. So legal marketing and business development, which, that's a professional services environment. So, what I brought to the table was, let's think about this model a different way. And it's very relationship-based, customer service-based, and more than just let's get a body in a seat and be, what I call, some might not like this, but what I call a people broker. I've got a job, I've got people, I got to put it together, and that's how we make our money. So we were really looking for a way, looking for a way to do that differently. So, Dave was the one that kind of quit his job first, started, banging out things, walked around, kind of talked to people he knew. Here's what we're thinking, got some projects started. I worked pretty much just at night, putting our marketing together, kind of helping him to build, sort of the foundation of the company. And over time, as that took off, I eventually left my job after probably 3 months or so, because the, late nights till 3 a.m, at the computer was getting to be a little bit much. And then we just took the leap. And it's definitely, we're in a business that is cyclical. And our model is a little bit different. So, having been through downturns in 2008 and 2020, we're going through some, economic changes right now that are challenging. We understand how to navigate those, both, as ourselves being business owners, but also how to advise even on things like hiring and talent management and so forth.
Yeah. So very, very typically, that question, or I should say the answer to that question, is sometimes part of the answer to the next question. So usually why people start a business is part of why they're the right answer for other people? Like, so I guess my question, I'll just ask it straightforward rather than trying to spin it into, based on something you said. But why are you the right answer for recruitment versus what we all, and by the way, I love, and I don't take any offense whatsoever to the whole people broker thing. I think that is exactly what it is. So, and I hope anybody listening to this doesn't take offense to it, but it is true. Anyway, but like, so what makes your version of this the right answer? And let me just preface this by saying, I'm a pretty big proponent of there's never a right or wrong. It's always what's right or wrong for you or right or wrong for me, and it could be different, right? So I'm assuming there are still companies that prefer that old method of recruiting.
Absolutely.
But what would be, like, can you give us like a compare and contrast situation as to why sometimes one would be better than the other?
Yeah, and there's definitely situations where that makes sense for a company. Well, I can give you several examples, but to, kind of, excuse me, simplify, it's not scalable from a cost perspective. First of all, if a company is going, and especially if we think about where we work a lot in early stage companies and VC, PE backed companies, they are looking at costs as well as quality. And if you're going to pay 20 to 30% every time you hire, and take, for example, you're building out a sales team, that's a big hit. And that doesn't need to happen. One reason. So cost, we typically could save companies at least 40% off of what they're probably used to paying. Now, the other side of it, some companies say, hey, I'm going to build my own internal team. And that's fine. We often come in before they're ready to build an internal team, build some process, get things moving, do the recruiting. So we're executing on that. And then we help them to actually hire and onboard their recruiting team. So then we are, finished with working with them. So, we really looked at in the space that required, some cost consciousness, flexibility, because they have changing needs, things could switch on a dime. We wanted to build the model around that. Some of the other things when we are recruiting, as I mentioned, we really get to understand a company and we, know what their vision is. And then the way we recruit candidates, it's very marketing based. So we look at personas, for example, we talk to people. If there's somebody in an existing role, we can kind of understand why did they come there? What's driving them? Why do they stay there? And use some of the things we collect there to approach others for those similar types of roles. So we're gathering information along the way and really working on behalf of the company as if we are inside as part of the company. We're also providing candidate exclusivity. So we are building out target candidates and pipelines for our clients that we're not marketing them to other people. These are, hey, Tom, you need to hire a sales manager. Here's who we're targeting. Here's where they are in our outreach process. It's very programmed how we do that. We don't spam out people. It's very personalized. So those candidates we're working with for you on your behalf. And if you pass on them, fine, they, kind of move on, but we're not saying, hey, I've got a great sales manager. Where am I going to place them? And where am I going to do that quickly? So there is a focus on quality. If a client of ours is working with a candidate in a recruitment process and we see a red flag, we're going to show them the red flag. Hey, dig in more here, or they switched what they said, or what we're seeing in some of the process looks a little bit off. So you may want to dig in further. So we want to make sure they're hiring for quality, with urgency and with cost in mind.
Yeah, and to your point, and I've hired through some of these other style of recruiters, and to your point about just getting a body in the seat, sometimes they don't, and I'm sure that there are others that are very good at what they do, so I'm not making a generalized statement of all of them, but sometimes they'll literally just fill a seat and then they make these promises of like, well, if they don't work out within 30 days, 90 days, 100, whatever it is, 100 days, then we'll replace them for free. Well, it's not really for free, because even if they don't charge you their fee, you're still taking up time, money, and effort on your own part to get somebody trained up, and like it still costs you money even to replace that person for free. Whereas
absolutely,
like, the way that you're looking at it, involving somebody embedded in the company that's going to bring in the company into the interviewing cycle I would imagine at much better intervals, like at better stages, and then you're making a much more qualified decision versus interviewing 20, 30, 40 people because the recruiter's just pumping resumes at you, and you just, and then you end up hiring one of them because you just don't want to do this anymore.
No, you hit on so many key points there that I did, fail to mention. What we're doing is we are saving hiring manager time, especially your company's just getting started, everybody's wearing a lot of hats. What we don't do is pump a bunch of resumes. We are finding the candidates, so engaging them, qualifying them based on a collaboration with our client, getting feedback, and then being able to continue to hone in on what it is that they need. So it's really, our drivers are, lower ratios to interview to hire, for example. We want to ensure somebody's going to take a job if an offer is going to be made. So that focus on quality really is there. And then you're 100% right, is the wasted time. It's not just the person having to be replaced, it's doing that all over again. So yeah, and just to give you a little bit of a perspective, I think it's 82% of the candidates that are hired by our clients are, what we call passive candidates. They don't know about the opportunity. They're not necessarily looking for a job. We have really found them and engaged them to come into the process.
It's pretty awesome. It feels to me like a very quick summary could be, you have two ways of doing this. One would be trying to pick the lesser of evils. The other would be picking between the best, between the best qualified candidate. Although everyone's qualified, you've narrowed them down to. So it's really just a matter. It's not the lesser of two evils. It's picking the better candidate or the lesser of two evils.
Yeah. And look, some people like that contingency model. It's fine. Sure. They say, hey, I want to hire, work with you, and then tomorrow I want to have 20 resumes on my desk. That's not what we do. And we're very straightforward about that. But what we can do is some companies are used to that.
I want to know who has time to do that anymore. But anyway, go ahead.
We've come in and really we're advising, you think about it, we're talking a lot about execution, but, there's been instances where a CFO will say, here's my hiring plan. I need to hire 100 people in the next 90 days. Meanwhile, there's 10 people at a company and there's no way that they will be able to process that many people. So we really work with them to go, okay, let's take a step back. We look at things from the business perspective first, not just what do you have to hire? It's more like, what are you trying to achieve? Where are the biggest holes? What are you missing for opportunities? And how do we start to alleviate that in a way that makes sense? So, starting with that advisement, rather than, just give me the jobs to fill. So it's definitely different. It's a consultative model, which is how we're building process along the way, for our clients. They might be interviewing. So we'll talk about what are the questions you're asking? How are you scorecarding? How are you calibrating to know that everybody's making the right decision?
Yeah. So based on most of this conversation, I think I might be able to answer this next question myself to a certain degree, but I guess that's why we're here on the podcast, is to ask you these things, right? So what does the engagement actually look like from a logistics standpoint? I mean, does the person physically, do you bring somebody in, physically put them in somebody's office? Or remote? If they're all remote, I understand that, but I'm saying, like you mentioned earlier, being embedded in the company. And is it always one person? Do you put a whole team in there? Are the engagements usually long-term, short-term?
Yeah. So we actually have.
What does that look like?
We have three models. I mentioned about a key person or key leader. That is something that we will provide a flat fee for. So, instead of going to, maybe somebody would go to an executive search firm, it's really, we've made this for value-based cost, a cost model for companies that are in the early stage. So it's critical. They may not have the ability to pay that kind of money. So we flat fee key person searches if you've got a singular search. We have a managed services, which is essentially an fractional or more outsourced model where we have our team come in, we drop in, can be up and running and ramped, fully moving within 48 hours. Typically, we understand how to get into a company and how to get started fast. We say go from 0 to 60 as quick as possible. So with that, it could be anything from, hey, we need coverage from, basically a recruiter team that's going to be the equivalent of 2 days a week of recruiting, and up from there. That we discover based on a needs assessment and understanding what the scope is and the timeline. So we come up with basically, here's how many days worth of recruiting you need in a week or a month, and plan that way through a scope of work. Third model we have, which this is if you've got somebody usually in place that can manage somebody. We have these embedded recruiters, and we just drop in our team members to be managed specifically by the client. So rather than have us manage it and do more of the advisory work, these are people that are going to come in, execute, and we do that at different levels, anywhere from fractional, which is just a day a week, could be a head of recruiting, so a really strategic person, down through, hey, I need somebody more on the junior side that's going to help us look at some incoming and do some sourcing and help us get kind of top of the funnel up through full life cycle to close. So the models, we look at what makes sense best for the company and discuss what the best solution might be.
Awesome. I actually don't even think I have a follow-up question for that one. So we'll shift gears a little bit. We are on the GrowthCraft podcast. You are one of the core advisors in GrowthCraft. So let's talk about GrowthCraft a little bit here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you, from your perspective, like, what does GrowthCraft mean? Like, I got about 900 questions I'm going to ask all at once. You don't have to answer all of them, but just so. What does GrowthCraft mean to you? Where does it fit in the entrepreneurial world? Why did you get involved? What is it like? What attracted you to GrowthCraft, or how, like I said, I can continue on, but I think you get the gist of what I'm trying to find out here, right? Like, what is GrowthCraft for you, and why are you involved?
Yeah, absolutely. So clearly by the space that we work in, we have a passion for entrepreneurs and companies just getting started and helping them to succeed. Like, we truly, feel like we've built a team to help other companies build great teams. So, that tends to be so critical in, those earlier stage companies in particular. Yeah, it's important everywhere, but it's kind of more personal, I think, sometimes in those stage companies. So it was meeting some of the other advisors and, being able to work with companies in a collaborative way with other advisors where everybody is truly on the same page. So, we've got, somebody working, finance, somebody looking at what's their, leadership team look like, what's going on with sales, to work in conjunction and be moving towards the same goals and objectives as a company with a team that's cohesive. That was really attractive to me. And everybody I met was, really was great. So, I think the opportunity to help the companies grow and then work with a team of advisors in a way that's going to do that really effectively. And it's rewarding, just to work with other advisors for me personally.
I think, it's interesting because, when we're interviewing these, the advisors, I'm not sure if I'm going to have an opportunity to voice my opinion on this or not. So I'm going to take it now because I think you hit the nail on the head, which is if you're, because I've been involved with startups that have had multiple advisors, right? So you have me as a sales and marketing advisor, you have a financial advisor, and you might have an HR advisor. And if the advisors never spoke to each other, we all operated in our own silos, and the owner of that small company was like, I felt like half the time they were a messenger, like going back and forth to all the advisors going, well, and especially more so the financial one, because from a sales and marketing perspective, I'd want to try this, and they'd go back to the finance guy. Can we afford that? No. And I'd be like, well, how can you not afford it? Like, if you don't do it, you're not going to afford anything, and all this stuff, right? So I always felt like I always felt like the owner was like a middleman, and on occasion I'd ask him, I was like, well, can I just talk to that other advisor so we can get on the same page? And it was like a 50-50 shot on whether or not the owner of the company wanted us to do that. Whereas with GrowthCraft, we have already built in the mechanism so that all of the advisors can talk about whatever's going on with this particular client. show a united front. So the small business and the startup company does not feel like the middleman, and they're getting a singular point of advice, right? Like, so regardless of what the advice is about, whether it's recruiting or sales and marketing or finance or leadership, that we are going to present the united front, or even if we have subtle differences of opinions, we're going to give the owner the variations of the opinions that we've all already discussed. So there's no surprises for anybody, which is, I think, what I love about it. So I think it's cool that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that's a lot on an owner that's trying to do a million things, to be dealing with all these different people. And, you know, for example, let's say you're trying to put a sales and marketing plan together. You know, we're telling them, go recruit the people. Your message is, hey, outsource it. Well, how is that going to help? Like, and then there's a finance person probably saying, whatever. So, you know, to have that cohesive front working together is, I think, a real benefit to a founder.
And what scares me too, as you just said, what ends up happening when they're getting that alternate advice, who they go with isn't always the right decision for their company. Sometimes it's just who they like better, or who they've been in a relationship with longer. So if I've been there 3 years as their sales and marketing coach, and you came in 6 months are saying you shouldn't be outsourcing this, we can bring it in-house, they're going to go, nah, Tom said this, we're going to go with it. And if you and I have never spoke, I might agree with you, actually, right? But like, I don't know all the details that are happening behind the scenes. So I think GrowthCraft is going to create just this really bright shining star for startups that can get things done. All that said, so we're basically wrapping up here. We're getting toward the end of this, and I'd like to ask about things that you have going on that you want the world to know about, right? So is there anything that you guys do on a regular basis, or can people follow you? Can they get in touch with you if someone sees this and they say they really want to learn more? All of those things. So I'll give you kind of a few minutes to put all that in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is talentretriever.com. Also, we have a pretty active LinkedIn following. So if anyone wants to follow us there, that's great. Connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. Would love that. And we do have a monthly newsletter that we send, and we do produce a fair amount of useful content. So this isn't just, this isn't anything where just, hey, come buy our services. This is true content, things like, what is the true cost of unfilled jobs? How to, 5 most important things to recruit as a startup. So, the information is useful. So please, contact me or just sign up for the newsletter. We have a blog as well. So would love people to check that out.
And if you forget all of that and you don't want to rewind this recording, you can just come to GrowthCraft, and you'll find Cheryl on GrowthCraft too. So
totally, and lots of information posted there too. So yeah, just would love to connect with more people.
Awesome. So the final word here, really, I want to thank you, Cheryl, for jumping on with us here. You are the first, so I hope this podcast was good enough that we can call it the first and run with it. And we don't
Me too, Tom.
We don't have to call you back and say, hey, can we re-record that? No, I'm kidding. We're not doing that, everyone. But I did want to thank you very much for jumping on board with us here, and being bold enough to be the first advisor in our queue. And of course, remind everybody that growthcraft.org is our website. You can find a lot of specialty advisors there. Most of our advisors are very unique in what they do. Again, Cheryl being the recruitment and and personal what do they call it? Talent acquisition? No, but there's another human capital, right? Is that another term that you use?
Lots of terms for it.
So there's lots of terms for it. Myself and sales and marketing, there's others that are there. So we welcome you to join us. We do forums every month. We do workshops every month. You'll learn a lot. You can ask a lot of questions, and a lot of it is free. We're not looking right out the gate for engagements or anything like that. We're not looking to charge all kinds of money. So right out the gate, it's a free community for you to really get your feet wet, and especially if you're new to this, we got a lot of people that can help you out in the early stages of this. So Cheryl, I thank you very much, and I appreciate you jumping on with us.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.